Hello everyone, I just want to apologize for my appearance. I'm actually in bed. I had a horrific migraine last night, and unfortunately when I have a really bad migraine, sometimes the day after I still have like a mild headache and still feel kind of nauseous. So I do apologize for my background and my appearance. So this week I guess I just wanted to share um, a great moment that I had at work this week. So not necessarily a specific topic. So yesterday I was hanging out a lot on the secured dementia unit, which I've spoken about before and have said that it's definitely one of my favorite units to be on. I was doing some care planning, some notes, going over files, doing some work. Plus, I think it's also great that number one, I get to see the patients, and number two, I really get to see how staff interact with the patients. And one thing I always love is being able to educate others or learning from others. I think sometimes that we don't really realize how much maybe we could learn from, an aide or a certified nursing assistant or a nurse, or how much they could learn for us. So we have this one patient. She's female, and she's very territorial. So a couple of years ago, she was on really heavy drugs, but unfortunately, the family didn't like it because she, wouldn't speak. She was kind of like a vegetable and very out of it. So they've slowly weaned her off medication, and I'm not 100% sure. I think she's on kind of a low dose of Celexa. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it is Celexa. So we have what we call clusters. So typically they are there's like 4 rooms, and then there's a little area that they keep a couch and a TV. Well, this patient becomes very territorial. She thinks this is her house. She owns it. She can kick people out. She pays the bills. She can also become quite violent. So there's been times she's smacked aides, hits aides, kicks other patients. We got a new male patient that is in the cluster, and she goes in, she packs up his stuff, she puts it in boxes, she unplugs different things. She opens, the closet. When the patient was in there one night, she had snuck in because her room is right next door, and she had unplugged his oxygen. So there are a variety of safety reasons of, we kind of have to control what's going on with this patient. And the bad thing is that when she's going into the other patients' rooms in her cluster, she's getting skin tear. So I don't know if you've ever seen with the elderly, their skin becomes very thin, and they could, knock it on a door, and where we may have a tiny little scratch or even a bruise, she, her arms get totally bruised and totally cut. So one of the aides, and I know what everybody's going to say, is he shouldn't have had it on him, but had his cell phone in his pocket. And he was dealing with this patient, and she became, aggressive and, was fighting, and he was trying to hold her to kind of restrain her, but also prevent her from, hitting him anymore. She took his cell phone and she placed it in her pants. And I guess you can kind of just laugh at just that. Number one, you shouldn't have had your cell phone on the floor, and I guess it wouldn't have ended up in the patient's pants. But anyway, I heard about it. They had called for the nurse manager, and I was in the office with her, obviously doing the paperwork that I needed to get done. So they all went running, and I kind of figured, you know what? Let me just go. Maybe I could learn something. I really wasn't thinking that they would want me to intervene. I've been trying to definitely feel more comfortable, but it's, 4 months, and I feel like I'm still learning a lot. So I went in, all the nurses, the aides, they were putting gloves on, and I kind of looked at the nurse manager, and I said, what are you guys doing? And she's like, well, we're going to just have to take her down because she's refusing to give the phone. So, I like to be proactive, and I think this is the way that we learn as social workers, just to kind of jump in. I said, you know what? Let me just try. Just give me a chance. Let me see if I can make it work. And, one of the aides kind of looked at me a little weird, like, okay, this intern thinks she's going to come in and fix it. And I knew we had 2 options. Either one, I could try, and, oh, sorry, I'm very itchy. one, I could try and it would work and she would give me the phone, or two, it wouldn't work and they would have to, basically take her down to retrieve the phone, which I think is really the last resort. It gets them more anxious, it gets them more upset, more agitated, more violent. So I was really trying not to do that. So the nurse manager, oh, excuse me, sorry. The nurse manager took all the staff out. They were out waiting in the hallway, but I could see that they were like peeking in. Now, I have my one resident who is becoming very agitated, who we're trying to get the phone from. I also have another patient sitting next to her who's also agitated. So I was like, all right, this is going to go one of two ways. I'm going to try and it's going to work, or they both could come at me and we can have some issues, but I'll give it a go. So I kind of went in and I was, very calm, very soft-spoken, and I kind of said, like, what's going on? And she said, him, and he's hurting me, and she's showing me, like, a bruise on her neck and a bruise on her arms. Now, I know where these bruises come from, which is what I said before, is when she's going into patient's room, she's knocking. And she said, I don't want him, and I want him out of my house, and this is, this can't be, and something needs to be done. And I said, I get it. I said, I want to make a report. I want to do everything to make sure that you stay safe, and really made her feel like I was caring about what was going on and wanted to fix it for her. I asked once for the phone. She said no, so we continued. I said, okay, well, tell me exactly what happened, what I need to report. She said, okay. So I said, do you think you could give me the phone? I want to lock it up. I want to make sure, I report it. I need to show it to, my boss so this doesn't happen. Sure enough, she took it out of her pants and she gave it to me. I said, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Told her I was going to go, write it all down. I went back and sat in the office. Not even 5 minutes later, everybody was like, oh, you did such a great job. And I said, I felt like a social worker. And I think it's really important when we have these moments where we can really engage with not only the staff, but our patients and clients. And you truly feel like as a social worker, you really helped. I felt really good. And I felt like I was on cloud nine. But I guess where maybe I would see what you guys have to say is the second part of this. And I apologize that the video was long tonight. But I was back in the office, and within 5 minutes, she came in and she said, my attorney needs to speak to you. And I was like, okay. And I, went. And I said, oh, okay. I said, where is he? Now, I guess in my mind, I thought she was going to reenact the part of the lawyer. But she pointed to the TV and she said, well, he's right there. You don't see him? And I was like, I didn't know, whether, number one, to tell her, like, okay, this is actually television. This is not an attorney. Or two, to kind of play along. At that moment, I decided to play along because I felt like if I tried to argue with her, she could become more agitated and aggressive. And I didn't want that. I was trying to calm her down. So I basically looked at the TV and said, I've spoken with this patient, and this is what I'm going to do. These are my next steps. And, I looked at her and I said, okay, I said, I think he has all the information that, he needs. And, she looked at me and she said, well, you can go now and get out. I said, okay. And I did. And, about an hour later, I went back in and checked on her and she was fine sitting watching TV. So I just wanted to share my kind of, not aha moment, but a moment where I truly felt like a social worker. And I guess I just wanted to see if you guys would have handled that situation that I dealt with any differently, or if you have any tidbits or advice that I could maybe use in the future. Thanks, guys. I apologize this video was so long. Have a nice night.